What if I told you that Hereditary isn't just a horror movie? It's not just grief. It's not just trauma. It's a story built on something much, much old, something theological. Because the demon at the center of Hereditary isn't made up. He comes straight out of texts that overlap with Christian belief. And what's even more disturbing, the movie follows those rules. The demon is real. Let's go deeper than just the name. King Paimon isn't just a demon in the Lesser Key of Solomon. He's part of a structured hierarchy known as the Ars Goetia, a catalog of 72 demons. And what's important here isn't just that he exists, it's how he exists. Paimon is described as a king of the West, accompanied by legions of spirits associated with knowledge, influence, and obedience. But here's where it starts to connect back into Christian frameworks in a more subtle way. These texts don't present demons as chaotic monsters. They present them as fallen intelligences, beings with rank, purpose, and specialization. The idea mirrors the Christian concept that demons are not equal to God, not random, but part of a corrupted order that used to be something else. And there's something else that's easy to overlook. Paimon isn't summoned for destruction. He's summoned for knowledge, for power, for influence over others, which reframes Hereditary in a completely different way. The cult isn't trying to destroy the world. They're trying to install authority. That final scene, it's not chaos. It's a coronation. And that aligns with the deeper theological fear. Not just evil existing, but evil organizing itself into something that looks like a kingdom. Let's go past the idea of demons need a host and talk about how that actually works conceptually. In Christian thought, demons are often described as non-physical beings, unable to directly interact with the material world in full capacity, which creates a limitation. They can influence, but they can't fully act without something physical. And that's where possession becomes less about horror and more about function. A body gives a demon sensory access, seeing, hearing, speaking. It gives a demon agency, which means movement and interaction. And it gives the demon presence in that physical world. Without that, they are incomplete. Now, look at Hereditary through that lens. What the cult is doing isn't random ritual, it's problem solving. Because Paimon has a very specific requirement. He prefers a male host. He needs stability. He needs a vessel that can sustain long-term control. That explains something a lot of people miss: the failures in the film. Charlie is not the end goal. She's an intermediate step, and that's a terrifying idea. Possession isn't always instant. Sometimes it's iterative. Test, adjust, transfer. That aligns with a more strategic view of the demonic influence. Not explosive, not obvious, but patient. And then there's one more layer that makes it even darker. Consent doesn't always look like possession. It can look like participation, curiosity, grief-driven openness, meaning the line between attacked and being used isn't always clear. And in Hereditary, by the time the final possession happens, it does not feel like an invasion. It feels like something that was being constructed the entire damn time. Now let's shift from what is happening and to how it's being done, because one of the most unsettling things about Hereditary is how methodical the ritual structure is. This isn't random occult imagery thrown in for aesthetics. It's systematic. Throughout the film, you'll notice a repeated symbol carved into the walls, jewelry, poles, even hidden in the background of shots. That symbol isn't just decoration. It functions like a marker of territory and complete intention of this cult. In many occult traditions, symbols act as identifiers: who is being invoked, anchors where the influence is focused, and signals who is in on the ritual. So instead of thinking of the house as haunted, think of it as prepared, like a ritual space that's been quietly constructed long before the story begins. Now, here's something most people miss. The ritual isn't confined to one moment. It's distributed across the entire film. Every key event lines up like steps. The grandmother establishes the foundation, objects are placed and preserved, the family is positioned exactly where they need to be at just the right time. Emotional states are manipulated at the right time. This reflects a deeper idea in ritual practice, that power doesn't come from one act, but from the alignment over time. And then there's the use of the decapitation imagery. It happens more than once, and it's not just for shock values. Symbolically, decapitation represents separation of identity, removal of control, preparation for or replacement, which directly ties into what the cult is trying to do. Not just summon Paimon, but make room for him. There's also the physical positioning of bodies in the final scene, the bowing, the arrangement, the silence. That's not chaos, it's ceremony. And ceremonies, especially in religious or occult contexts, are about recognition of authority, submission, completion of a process. So when you watch that ending again, it's not just disturbing, it's structured worship, and that is freaky as fuck. Now here's why Hereditary becomes something deeper than most horror films, because something you're seeing can be interpreted in two completely different ways. At one level, this is a story about grief, trauma, mental illness passed between generations to generation. Annie is overwhelmed. Peter is breaking down. The family is collapsing under emotional weight. You could watch the entire movie and say this is just a psychological unraveling. But there's another layer, a spiritual one, where none of this is accidental and every emotional fracture is being leveraged. Here's what makes that duality so effective. The film never forces you to choose. Instead, it lets you interpret both meanings at the same time. It exists at the exact same time, and that mirrors something real within Christian thought. That idea that internal struggles can have external influence. Weaknesses can create vulnerability, and deception doesn't always feel like deception. Let's look at Annie again. When she starts exploring communication with her daughter, you can interpret that as a grieving mother desperate for closure, or someone unknowingly stepping into something spiritual that she doesn't understand. Both are true at the same time, and that overlap is where the horror lives. And Peter, his experience in the final act, it feels like a complete psychological break. Disassociation, loss of identity, total surrender, but from a spiritual lens, it's not collapse, it's replacement. And that's what makes Hereditary so unsettling compared to other films. It doesn't rely on proving supernatural. It builds a world where even if you don't believe in demons, everything still plays out in a way that feels disturbingly possible. And maybe that's the scariest part. Not that one interpretation is correct, but that the film is designed so that the psychological and spiritual never cancel each other out. They reinforce each other. So there are no verified real-world sightings of King Paimon in the way horror movies portray. No credible historical record shows someone physically encountering him like in Hereditary, but that doesn't mean that the name hasn't shown up in real life. The earliest accounts of Paimon come from the grimoire like the Lesser Key of Solomon. These aren't sightings, they're instructions. They describe his appearance, often riding a camel and crowned. His voice is said to be loud or musical. What can he offer? He offers knowledge, influence, loyalty. Important distinction is that these texts assume a ritual framework, not random encounters, meaning Paimon isn't something people claim to see in the wild. He's something people historically tried to summon intentionally. Now, in modern times, especially online, some occult practitioners claim interactions with Paimon. These claims often involve dreams or visions, also meditation or ritual experiences, communication through symbols or impressions. But here's the key. These are subjective experiences. They're not independently verified events. Even within occult communities, there's disagreement about what's real and what's psychological. From a Christian perspective, figures like Paimon aren't typically referenced by name in the Bible. Instead, Christianity talks about demons more broadly, possession accounts like in Luke, or spiritual warfare like in Ephesians. So if someone claims a Paimon encounter in a Christian framework, it would usually be interpreted as not that specific named demon, but a deceptive spirit presenting itself under that identity. So now let's go one layer deeper, because everything we've talked about, possession, deception, ritual, hierarchy, none of that is unique to Hereditary. It's already laid out in the Bible. In the Gospel of Luke, there's a moment where Jesus encounters a man possessed by multiple demons. And when he casts them out, they beg him for something specific, not to be destroyed, not to disappear, but to enter into something physical. They ask to go into a herd of pigs. And that detail matters because it reinforces the idea. Demons in biblical context are not fully grounded in the physical world. They seek embodiment, which lines up exactly with what we see in Hereditary, not just influence, but a need for a vessel. In 2 Corinthians, there's a line that changes how you look at everything. Satan disguises himself as an angel of light, meaning evil doesn't always present itself as evil. It presents itself as comfort, truth, even something that feels unholy. And that reframes Annie's experience completely, because what she thinks is contact could be imitation, not her daughter, but something using her image. The Bible also introduces a concept that's easy to overlook: access. In Ephesians, there's a warning about not giving the devil a foothold. That word implies something important: not full control, just entry, a starting point. And once that foothold is established, it can grow. That aligns almost perfectly with how events unfold in the film. Small openings, emotional vulnerability, gradual escalation, not instant possession, but progressive influence. But there's the structure. In Ephesians, again, it describes spiritual forces as rulers, authorities, powers. That language suggests something organized, layered, ranked, which is exactly how King Paimon is described, not as a random entity, but as a king with legions. So when you see this final scene, the bowing, the recognition, the coronation, it mirrors the idea of a dark hierarchy being acknowledged. And finally, there's one of the most disturbing parallels. It's the idea of losing yourself. In the Bible, demonic possession is often associated with altered behavior, loss of identity, being controlled by something external. And Peter's final state in the film, it doesn't feel like he's being attacked anymore. It feels like he's gone, replaced, which raises a chilling question. At what point does influence become complete eradication? So when you step back and look at all of this together, Hereditary isn't just pulling from the random horror tropes. It's drawing from the ideas that have existed for thousands of years. Ideas about spiritual invasion, deception, authority, and the possibility that evil doesn't just exist, but operates with intention. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know what you think, and I will see you guys later. Peace.